To learn more about the proposed Atlantic Sunrise Project pipeline, a long name, and Williams Partners. Some of you may still be learning about the pipeline, and we just hope to provide some information to you tonight that's going to address your concerns and your questions. We hope that at the end of this presentation that you may recognize, as we do, why this pipeline is not a benefit for our community. Before we begin, just some logistical items. I want to let you know that the bathrooms are located near the entrance where you came in to the right, and that we do anticipate wrapping up around 8:30, which will follow a question and answer session. So if any of you have comments or questions that you want to make, we'll take them around 8 o'clock. If you are opposed to the pipeline and you've made that decision, please take the time to sign the petition that's in the front on your way out. My name is Brenda Lee Siglitz. I'm a local author and resident here at West Hempfield. I actually grew up in Conestoga. I moved to the area about 2 years ago when I married my husband. I actually began educating myself about the pipeline when I attended the commissioners meeting back in April that they had with Williams. I was astounded at the size of the pipeline, and I was disappointed to hear that the natural gas that would actually come through this pipeline is not going to come to any Pennsylvanians. Since that time, I've become more educated about the project from both sides of the argument. I was shocked that it was supposed to come through West Hempfield. This is something I actually did not know at the meeting. Excuse me. But even more so, I was shocked that no one in the area really seemed to know about it either. So I initially reached out to Ron Yetz, our township manager here in West Hempfield, and I wanted to put the pipeline on a supervisor's meeting agenda. So when many of us concerned residents attended the July supervisors meeting at West Hempfield Township, we were railroaded by the news of the reroute, which actually moved the pipeline directly adjacent to the Bridge Valley development where I live, which is home to about 250 homes and countless families in this community. Since that time, more and more residents have stepped forward to learn what they can do to not only protect their properties, but to learn if this pipeline can be stopped. We have had to learn a lot more about environmental, historical hazards that lie along the path of this proposed pipeline in order to be taken seriously by the deciding agency who will approve or deny this project, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. You want to keep that name in mind. I, along with Melinda Clatterbuck and Tim Spees from Arctic Soul and West Hempfield resident John O'Draghi with the Shalefield Organizing Committee, wanted to bring all of you here tonight to better understand the risks of the pipeline, your rights as landowners, and what we can do as a community and a township to stop this pipeline from breaking through your land. We oppose the entirety of this pipeline because of the hazardous safety record of Williams, because it brings no economic benefit to Pennsylvania. We take all of the risk, and it is just bad for our community. It is important that you all understand about how this pipeline can be stopped, and that this opposition to the Atlantic Sunrise Central Penn South pipeline is a very real, achievable effort. However, it's when we work together as a community, which is why you guys are all here tonight to work together, supporting one another in our opposition of this pipeline, that we may bring this project to a standstill. I'm going to turn it over to John O'Draghi.
Thanks, Brenda. So, hi, everybody. My name's Tom Drake, but most of my friends call me Jono. I'm a lifelong resident of West Hempfield. I graduated class of 2001. I hunt, canoe, forage, fish, and feel a deep connection to Lancaster County and the southern Susquehanna River Basin. I want to start by stating that I am not to be confused with Tom Draghi that you all have been seeing in the paper. He's from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he works for Williams. That's not me. It's not my dad either, or my great uncle Tom.
I've seen that.
This is a description of his job from his LinkedIn account online. Quote, public relations. Plan and execute strategic communication initiatives for multi-state pipeline construction projects to proactively encounter, mitigate, and manage landowner community concerns of safety and eminent domain. Highlight safe operating records, community investment, economic development, and employee successes, end quote. So imagine my surprise when friends and family started calling me confused about quotes from Tom Draghi, the local news in support of the Atlantic Sunrise. It made for interesting talk at our Draghi family reunion last Saturday. He should have been there. Meet the other two Toms. It would have been, made for a really good night. So to keep things less confusing, y'all can call me Jono, like my friends do. I have many concerns about this pipeline, including air quality from leaked gas, explosions from human error, the continued burden it puts on our neighbors in the north and western parts of PA, decimating the last of our wild and semi-wild areas, which are integral buffers for our river and the Chesapeake Bay. But mostly it comes down to our land rights being violated and tearing apart our community. When this was first proposed, the pathway was going up over Chestnut Hill through a township property adjacent to the mulch yard and dog park, which is about 200 yards from my house. Since it's not affecting my property directly, I had to find this out on my own by going to their open house and seeing their maps in person. Now, thanks to the reroute, I gained probably another 100 yards in the other direction. Even though it's not affecting my personal property physically, I still feel for my neighbors, my community, and PA as a whole. If FERC grants permission, then even those landowners who oppose the pipeline will lose their land rights through eminent domain. Running pipelines through individual properties decreases property values, and owners will not be compensated for this loss. At the same time, because of decreased property values, local municipalities lose tax money and are not compensated for this either. So now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, who's been kind enough to come the whole way from the southern end, Linda Clatterbuck. Linda has taken it upon herself to self-educate and share the knowledge with her community through speaking one-on-one with her neighbors, creating the grassroots group Soul, writing to the paper, and hosting town hall meetings like this one in Mardick Township. We first met through countless emails, then I met her and her wonderful family at a movie night that helped host in Lancaster City. Now, countless meetings later, I'm happy to call her a friend. Linda.
Take it down, Tom.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. And thank you, Jono, for this nice introduction. Like he said, my name is Melinda Clatterbuck, and I do live in the southern end. I live in Holtwood. I live in a house I grew up in. My father bought it in 1971, so I was 1 year old when when we moved there. You can do the math and figure out how old I am. And when he died a few years ago, my husband and I moved from the Lehigh Valley and came back to the home that I grew up in. So my family settled in Conestoga actually, it's the same family as Brenda. We found out we're both Harnishes from West Willow area, and our family settled here in 1739. So we have deep roots in Lancaster County. Our land, our community, Lancaster is home to a lot of us who live here for a reason, and it matters to us what happens to this land. I think we need to start tonight by talking a little bit about who Williams is. Some of you are just beginning to learn about this, and when I got a knock on the door back in the end of March, and surveyors asked if they could go through our property, I started educating myself. I had no idea about this pipeline before someone showed up on my doorstep. And I felt violated already. I thought, wait a minute, you can cut my woods down, and you can, because I live on 8 acres of all woods, you can cut my woods down and do what you want with my property? Like, what are you talking about? So I started doing research. So I'm not an expert on this, but I've been educating myself and looking at Williams' website. They give you a lot of this information, and I've done a lot of other research. So what I'm sharing tonight is what I found out, and I hope that it helps you as you're trying to figure out what to think about this. One of the things I talk a lot about in my hometown when I do town hall meetings like this is to remind everyone that we're a community, and I want us to stay a community. I don't want this proposal to fracture who we are to each other. And I know Brenda and John feel the same way about this community in West Hempfield. That something like this coming through has a way of dividing people. And I know that you have a legal right to want the pipeline to come through your property, and I respect that right. I may not agree with you, but I respect the right that you have for that. I'm going to try and stop it because I'm asking to have the same right to say what happens on my property and what doesn't. I want to be able to say no and that be respected. You have the right to say yes. I have to fight for the right to say no. So if we can agree on that, you can sign the forms and you can go into an easement with Williams, and I won't agree with what you're doing, but I'll respect you if that's your choice. I'm asking for the same thing, and I think the community here who's been opposing it asks for the same thing, that we can agree to disagree. I'm hoping most of you are here though because you oppose it, because the more people we have opposing it, I think the greater chance we have of stopping it. So let's begin with who is Williams. Williams Partners is a big company, big. They're not small beans, they're not Lancaster big, they're national, international big. They're based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They have the leading diversified natural gas company in the US. How big monetarily? Some of the information I found is that in 2013 their net income was like $430 million, but in the first quarter of 2014 it was $352 million. So they're growing, not only big, but they're growing. The prediction in 2015 that it'll be up to $3 billion, and that's a lot of money. The Williams pipeline system, so these are words that you've heard, I just want to make sure that they're defined for you. So there's Williams Partners, who owns the pipeline system. The pipeline, and other things, but the pipeline system they own has a name called Transco. So Transco is the name of their pipeline system. It has over 10,200 miles in the US, and their longest line goes from Texas to New York, and it's 1,800 miles. This is not the best map, but you can see the United States, and you can see the bright blue. The bright blue is the Transco line. Along the East Coast, it starts up in New York City and goes down to the Gulf. The project they're working on is called the Atlantic Sunrise Project, and this line is full of a lot of things, but the main point is to make the lines that have been going from the Gulf and bringing natural gas up to the rest of the East Coast, making that line bi-directional, which means they want to take the gas from Marcellus Shale and send it back down along the East Coast to the seaboard so they can export it. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Coming closer to home, part of the Atlantic Sunrise Project is called the Central Penn Line. There's north and south. And this isn't a great map, but you can see how the line goes, and I could have, I should have a pointer. Could you do a point? You can see where the line goes, and this is the only reason I have this map. So one of our arguments is this line isn't necessary. Where the line cuts through is where the red arrows are, where Brenda's pointing right now. That's what comes through Lancaster County. That's the proposed line, Central Penn Line south. The north one goes north of there. But one of our arguments is it's not a necessary line, that they already have lines to the right and then back down that go where they want those cats to go. We're trying to encourage them to use already right-of-ways that they own. Thank you, Brenda. Closer to home again, some of you have probably seen this map because this has been in the newspapers. This shows you how the Central Penn Line south comes right through Lancaster County. There are maps in the back. Hopefully you got a chance to look at them. There are a few routes that have come up in West Hempfield Township, and the one they choose may be neither of those. that in this pre-filing period, you'll learn just a minute, I'll go through the details, they move the line around. They decide then where they think is the best place for the line, and they'll be submitting that to FERC a little bit later. So let's look at the timeline of this. Way back in April of 2013, so over a year ago, Dominion, who owns Cove Point down in Maryland, filed with FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. That's the agency that will be giving permission for this pipeline to go in or not. Back in April, Dominion filed with FERC to transform their facility into an export facility. So rather than receiving natural gas from abroad and spreading it throughout the country, they want to take natural gas from here, turn it into liquid natural gas, because it has to be liquid natural gas to transport across the ocean. And they want to export it. At that time, 40% of the capacity that the pipeline would carry, the Atlantic Sunrise Project would carry, was under contract. 20% to India, 20% to Japan. That's still under contract to be sold to India and Japan. The other 60% has been sold. Williams has declared that they've sold 100% of the natural gas. We haven't figured out yet where that other 60% is going, and if anyone else does, I'd love if you'd let me know. We're doing research, and I do try to have a life outside of doing pipeline stuff, so I haven't put all of my energies into it yet. In March of 2014, Williams Partners sent letters to landowners. That's when I was contacted. The first original proposed line was to go through my backyard. I live right up against Tupelo Glen Preserve. In April, they submitted their pre-filing. Now what the pre-filing is, it's not necessary, but most gas companies do this. They let FERC know what they're planning on doing and how they're planning on doing it. And then it fluctuates, the public has a right to comment, and it's given a docket number. I wrote the docket number there, and some of you may know that if you've been commenting to FERC. The docket number is, oh, I'm sorry, I have to keep going. The docket number is PF 14-8. And that's not a lot of the information that we have in the back too, little green cards if you want to take them with you. Also in April, the surveys began. Surveyors started going out and looking at the proposed line and where they wanted it to go. You may have seen markers like this. All along the route, these markers were set up in our backyard through the Lancaster County Conservancy property. And they did not give permission for it, but they didn't need to, just as an aside. It's public access on the Conservancy property, so Williams surveyors could access it without permission. But anybody else who has the proposed line coming through their property has received a letter asking for permission. How many in this room have received letters? Would you mind raising your hand if you have? So we have landowners in the room. So if you received a letter and you denied permission, they cannot legally come on your property. And as some of you may know, in the southern end, we did have some Williams surveyors trespassing on property to do the surveying without permission. If you have given permission and they've not yet surveyed and you would like to rescind that permission, we have forms, an affidavit you could fill out and send in to them saying, I changed my mind, I really don't want you on my property, and if that's the case, please see me or Tim Spees. Are you in the room? Tim Spees is in the back. He has the forms. If you are interested, you can contact him. So let's continue with our timeline. Moving right along, June 11th, 2014, some of you may have made it to the Millersville University open house meeting with Williams. What happens is FERC requires the gas company to have an open house and get comments from the public. Oh, that's not good. From the public. And they did that on the 11th. That was kind of frustrating for me because you go there and you make comments and they have maps out where you can see where the proposed line goes through your property. And you know, I went to one Williams employee and said, you know, I have this question. There were some of my Amish neighbors there. They wanted to know if they could build fences. And the guy said, oh yeah, you can do anything on the line. And I was like, no, you can't. And I stepped into the circle and I said, I'm sorry, I don't think that's true. You can't do anything over the line. He's like, oh, well, you know, you just need permission. You can't dig right where the pipe is, and you can't build buildings. And I was like, right, so don't say you can do anything over the line. And then I said, well, can you dig holes and put fence posts over the line? That's not my area of expertise. There's somebody here who knows that. And there were like 50 or 70 Williams men there answering questions. And so you had to go from person to person until you found the person who could answer your question. And my other concern and frustration about that was nobody from Williams had a paper or pencil to take notes about any of our concerns. So I'm glad that they have an open house, they're fulfilling their requirement. I wish that it could have been more beneficial to them and we would have felt like our voices were being heard in some way. And then FERC had scoping meetings at Millersville just on August 4th, just last week. And I don't know if they make a statement about how they feel and the concerns they had specifically about the line. We tried to get a lot of professionals standing up and speaking who had poignant points to make. So their continued goal is by spring of 2015 to verify exactly where their line is going to go. And in the spring, they would submit their filing. So this is their final application to FERC. At that point, this line will get a new docket number. And all of the hundreds of comments that we've made to FERC so far will disappear. And we start all over as the public submitting comments. So I hope if you're making comments, you're saving them in Word documents, because if they're still valid after the final line is in, we'll want to submit them again. Their anticipation of construction will be the beginning of the summer of 2016, and then the second half of 2017 is when they hope to have it in service. Just so you have a timeline of how much time we have and where we're going with this. Some details about the pipeline. So this is the Central Penn line south. So during this pre-filing status, the line's going to change, and you've seen that happen. It moved out of Mount Joy, maybe. An alternate route was given. Williams keeps saying it's moved away from Shanks Ferry and Tupwan Glen in the southern end. When my husband and I have called FERC, we said, okay, so that's off the books. No. Well, Williams keeps saying publicly that they moved it because of public comment, that they moved it out of the precious areas that we have. And they said, well, it's not our primary focus for the route right now, but it's still being considered. It's not off the books yet. So I'm still not sleeping easy because my backyard is still in jeopardy. And even if my backyard isn't, my neighbor's backyard is in jeopardy. And their backyard isn't any better than my backyard if they don't want it there, in my mind, and how I'm working towards this. So the final route will be determined by the spring of 2015. This is considered a greenfield line, just so you know the terminology. Greenfield means that it's where they don't already have a right-of-way. So this greenfield line is a new pipeline. They don't have any pipelines on this route. It's a 42-inch transmission line. Oh, Jonna, would you get, thank you. And 42 inches is big. Oh yeah, there's one in the back, and Jonna has one here in the front. I know when I talk to some people about this, and you could put it here maybe, or if you want to keep holding it, that's fine. Yes, do it, you will. You can put it, I thought it might fit on there, but some people thought this is, you have a 3 or 4 inch line coming into your house if you use natural gas. Some of the lines are like 8 or 9 inches, but this is the size of the pipeline, and it will have 1,200 to 1,500 psi. The pressure is huge. During the installation, there's usually a 125 to 175 foot installation corridor where they will cut down trees, they'll just cut down everything, and then they have a 50-foot permanent right-of-way. So I don't know if they replant trees, I think they're supposed to. If they had cut trees down for the installation, they'll replant them up to the permanent right-of-way, which is 50 feet wide. Over that right-of-way, there can be no trees, no buildings, and no digging. And now we have 2 routes in West Hempfield. But by the time that spring comes around, and the comments people are giving, there's no guarantee that either of those lines are the line that's going to be used. There might be another route that we haven't seen yet as the one that they submit as their final choice. So one of my concerns is people say, well, it's not my backyard and over there is fine. But they're not off the hook yet. We still don't know where it's going. And we need to be aware of that this is the time to move the line around. So some of our concerns. Oh, I missed that, the open access line. Just another point for you to keep in your head, that this is called an open access line. That's what they've submitted in all of their filings with FERC, Williams has submitted. And open access means I wish I could remember the date, and I can't, but when FERC allowed for pipelines being installed to have the status of open access. And what that does is it allows anybody else to have access to that pipeline quickly without going through all the red tape that's necessary for tapping into other pipelines. It makes it quick and easy for other people to access it. So the point is that once this line goes in, it's possible that other lines are going to weave into it, attached to it. Okay, concerns. If you have questions, please hold them, because at the end we will have a time of question and answer, and we're going to allow 30 to 45 minutes for that time because we really want to hear what you have to say. I know a lot of you probably have things you want to say about this. Not that we'll have answers. If we don't, we'll find answers for you, but some answers we may have. Concerns, and I'm going to go through this list pretty quickly, and then I'll go into more detail in them in the next few minutes. So first is water contamination. And this is one, I don't know all the details, but I know it was moved, the line proposed was moved around Mount Joy because it was close to the municipal water supply. So it's moved to people who have well water, is that right? Or no? Some? You know that better than I do up here. I know how it affects us in the southern end. Forest fragmentation, just separating a community and environment. Irreparable damage to farmland. And this is one of my biggest concerns. I think that Lancaster County is identified by who we are as an agricultural area. And the disruption of this line coming through is a real concern to me. Lancaster Farmland Trust Representative Karen Martinick spoke Monday during that meeting with FERC, and had a letter in the newspaper the following day about some of the legal options they're exploring to see what they can do to try and protect preserved farms. Cindy Ivey, who speaks for Williams, works for them and represents them. There's a YouTube thing going around with her in an interview in, I think it's Columbia County, it's north of us, where she says, the preserved farmlands are preserved because we want to protect them from development. You can't put buildings on top of the pipeline, so we kind of have the same goals in mind. And I almost retched because it made me so sick to think that she could twist the reality that much, that I don't know if she believes it or it's just what she says. Erosion, we live in the River Hills in the southern ends. You have rolling hills around here. Erosion is an issue already. We spend thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to try and control our erosion, especially on our fields. And to have this disruption come through and then give us money for 3 years to try and maintain, because that's what they do. They pay you for 3 years of your loss of crops and then say that it should all be back to normal after that. It just won't cut it, and especially in trying to get the land back to where it was before. Disruption during construction and air quality. Poor safety record of Williams, I'll go into details of that more in a second. Other industrial buildup I kind of touched on. Eminent domain, Chris Stockton from Williams was quoted in an interview with Diane Rehm, where he said, we'll be filling 10% of the US demand before the Atlantic Sunrise project goes in. We'll be fulfilling 10%. And when it's completed, we'll still be fulfilling 10%. So if this huge capacity that this pipeline can carry is not providing any more natural gas that increases the amount that they're giving to Americans, the question is, where is it going? And I believe most of it, if not all of it, is going to export. Misinformation about what's happening from survey crews. I can't even believe this, but some of my neighbors, and I have a lot of Amish neighbors. Are there a lot of Amish in West Hempfield? I know I don't live that far away, but it's a different community. There are. Well, especially my Amish neighbors have said, the surveyors have come on my property, and they've told me if I resist in any way, I'll get no money for this. If it goes to eminent domain, then I get nothing. That right now, Williams is going to offer me fair market value. And after that, if I resist, and it goes to eminent domain, they'll still use my property and I'll get no money. And I'm standing there, a woman, speaking to men to begin with, and their wives are standing behind them, and I said, that's not true. But I mean, if it goes to eminent domain, they're required to pay you at least fair market value, and you can put an amount on, you can quantify what they should owe you and what you're losing with this coming through your property. And They said, well, hey, that I think they should know what they're doing, and that's what they told me. And it infuriates me that they get away with bullying and lying in this way. They come in and be honest with me, and let's talk. I'm okay with that, and I'll agree or disagree, and I'll respect you. But to come in and be dishonest it really gets me right here. Homeowners insurance issues. This is another thing that's really frustrating to me. Williams keeps saying that the pipeline does not affect landowners' insurance at all. There is a journalist named Mark Hand who just wrote an article about this in SNL Energy, if anyone's interested in looking it up. It came out about 3 weeks ago. And what he reported on and what he talked with me about, we were in dialogue a lot over this, is that it's very possible that your insurance companies will not change your fees at all for your homeowner's insurance. But they also do not cover any accidents with a pipeline whatsoever. And there's a high risk with this pipeline now on your property, especially if it's close to your home. So the one scenario is they don't increase your homeowner's insurance, but they will not cover any accidents with the pipeline. And you need to ask specifically, because there are some homeowners policies that I've read from farther north where the drilling is taking place, where they say, oh yeah, we cover everything but, and then they start listing the chemicals that are used in fracking. So any accident or damage that's done by the chemicals used in fracking, they do not cover. Williams says, we have insurance on the pipeline, so you don't have to. Well, they don't come into your home and assess the value of your property and hand you a policy to protect your land if there's an accident. What they do is they have insurance to cover their own butts. That if there's an accident, you have to sue them in order for their insurance to kick in and cover any cost that you've lost or any damage that's been done to your property. So people need to be clear on that. And then the other scenario, we have friends of ours in Conestoga who have had written response from their homeowners insurance who said, we won't increase your rates, but we don't cover any accidents. What you would have to do is you would have to buy another policy that would cover, kind of like flood insurance. We don't cover it. If you're in a flood zone, it's an extra thing. You have to pay extra money, so get an extra policy to cover just the risk of the pipeline on your property. And violation of community rights, which we'll talk about in just a minute. I'm going to whip through these pretty quickly. Williams safety record, it was the third highest year for fines last year in 2013. 2013 had the highest year, let me start that over. The third highest year ever for fines, overall, not just with Williams. So last year had the third highest fines on record for gas and oil industries. Williams paid the most for violations last year, and those violations were drilling, erosion, mud spills into creeks during pipeline construction. And in the last six months, I had 4 months, but 2 months have passed since I first made this. Williams had 3 major gas lines explosions. Here's just a graph for you to see. On the far left, blue, that's Williams. The far right is Chesapeake. They paid nearly $400,000 in 2013. Chesapeake paid about $75,000, and I pick out Chesapeake on the far right because they're a larger company than Williams, but they paid less fines. So the explosion risk and other accidents is a real concern. This is just, I mean, you can't read this, it's just a list of all the violations. I think visual helps for some people. And then just some accidents. This is a picture of an accident in Virginia in 2008. I have one in Alabama, and then one in West Virginia.
And how big were those pipelines?
They were not 42 inches.
Smaller.
They were smaller, yes. So another concern we have is the inadequate regulations on pipelines in Pennsylvania right now. There's been this surge of the gas industry, and the regulations haven't kept up with it. I don't know if you read earlier this summer, the Transportation Department issued a statement saying the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, which is a federal agency called PHMSA, they said that inspectors aren't properly trained, they're not inspecting the most risky lines, and that PHMSA failed to inspect thousands of lines last year. So another concern I have is the boom is ahead of safety. Water contamination, the Well Water Act Act 13 requires the DEP to notify public water systems, but not private well users of leaks by the gas industry. So if you have well water and there's an accident, the gas company is not required by law to contact you and let you know. Coming through Lancaster County, the line would be crossing 12 tributaries, and the Susquehanna is already in really bad shape. The Fish and Boat Commission continually asks for it to get the status of impaired, so money could be spent to help the Susquehanna River because it's in such bad shape right now. I hope you don't fish and eat the fish out of there. A lot of people say it's just not possible. Agricultural impacts, and some of you are farmers and you know this more than I do. I mean, my first job when I was 13 was picking tomatoes in my neighbor's farm, but I didn't know anything about the soil. I just did the grunt labor. Damage to irrigation systems, soil compactions. So I have a neighbor who does no-till, and he goes all across the country commenting to other people about how to do no-till. And he's on a forum for farmers across the country, and he sent an email out saying, this pipeline's going through my backyard. What do you know? Because I think he kind of thought at first, great, I'll make some money, and then I can farm over top of it. And he started getting dozens of responses from friends and strangers saying, get every bit of cent, penny, money you can get because it's not going to be enough to pay for how it's going to hurt your farm. One of the issues is the soil compaction. They pound the dirt so hard to keep the pipe from moving, and then they have a lot of trouble with irrigation or with the water, with it, and with any life growing above it. Crop loss for construction. They pay you, like I said, over 3 years, but sometimes if you go into an easement with the gas company and you say, okay, so this is a 50-foot right-of-way, you're going to pay me for the use of this space. And you go into an agreement with them, but then you realize that this space cuts you off from 40 acres that you have on the other side of it, and you don't have access to the other land, but you're not getting a penny for those crops that you can't get to. Like, there are little details that they, if you don't know and you're trying to go into easement with them, they're going to take advantage of you because it's what they do. When I spoke to a woman from FERC, she said, don't believe a thing the gas company says when they come to your door. And I said, no wait, you're deciding, like you're telling me that you always say yes to gas companies. They don't say no. They say you can go here or here, but they never say no. And you're telling me that you know they outright lie to landowners. And she said, that's what they do. And that's okay with you. Like I really had a heavy, you know, I don't get very mean, but I had a tense conversation I had with anybody with that woman on the phone. Where was I? Utility corridor. Oh, the other thing is, so once you give them the right-of-way, if there's an issue with the pipeline in the future, they can come back and access it whenever they want. And they're not required, like if they have to dig it up and fix something, they're not required subsequent times after the initial installation to pay you for your crop loss. So there are so many ways that I think it really doesn't benefit us. It's not like, and I mean, I have a problem with drilling, but where there's drilling, people continually get money if they're landowners. Here, it's a once and done thing, and inevitably, you're going to be paying out more money than you get from them in compensation. Okay, eminent domain. This is one of my biggest issues, and I just put a comment into FERC. I posted it on Soul, the Facebook page that I manage, because I'm so angry that most of this gas is probably going to be exported. And if FERC gives them permission, they will have the right to use my land against my will through eminent domain as it being a public good. The CEO of Alan Armstrong, I'll read this in case you can't read it. We're excited, not that you can't read it, but if it's too small print. We're excited about the accelerating pace of expansion projects at Transco, including Atlantic Sunrise, Dalton Lateral, and our newly announced Gulf Trace project. The Atlantic Sunrise will serve as important infrastructure for future LNG export facilities at Cove Point and Sabine Pass. I think it's absolutely wrong that this qualifies for eminent domain if it's being exported. It's private gain. It's public risk for private gain. And I am one of the few people who actually believe I should pay taxes I think that the government's important to, I drive on the roads, I send my kids to school. I feel as though we live in community and we put into that community so we get something out of it. And that's partly what government does. And yeah, there are abuses and there are issues and we have other issues, but I think paying taxes is my civic right. I want to give to community for the good of other people. I don't believe that that's what this line is about. I have just a few pictures of the construction sites, installations. They're just visuals, just what it looks like as they're putting lines in, where they cut the trees down. It's wider than what it would look like through woods afterwards. And now I just want to address a few misconceptions you might have, and I've already talked about these, but I'm naming these again because you may hear these exact words. We need the gas for our consumption. If you saw the show, there was like a few segment show on WGAL recently where they quoted the Williams guy as saying, and I'm so sorry, I have to apologize, I didn't look up the exact amount, but he said something like, this is 17.1 decatherms, this is going to provide a day, which is heat for 7 million Americans. If they provide 10% before this line goes in and 10% after this line goes in, they're not providing that much. The capacity that this pipeline carries isn't going to that many Americans. It's going abroad. It's misleading. The capacity might be able to provide that much for Americans, but that's not what this line is doing. The pipeline has to go somewhere. I don't think it does. The other thing, if we're supposed to be, and this is another question, that it's going to help our, it will make us less dependent on foreign oil. What would make us less dependent on foreign oil if they would have this gas go to Americans more slowly, rather than getting it out of the ground as quickly as they can and exporting it as fast as they can so they can make more money. If you go home and you look online, if you're online, and I didn't bring everything, all the research I've done, but natural gas in other countries is 4, 5, and 6 times more than it is here in the United States. And a big company like Williams, bottom line is what matters. They want to make as much money as they can. They're not going to sell it here at a small price when they can sell it for 6 times more abroad. There's nothing we can do. I'm hoping that's not true. Otherwise, I put my life on hold for a few months to try it for nothing. But I'm hoping that what we're doing can make a difference, and we'll talk a little bit about some other options we think we have. It will create jobs. The other thing, if you went to the Lancaster County Commissioners meeting with Williams, one of the things that Cindy Ivey clearly said was, well, yeah, it won't really help provide any jobs for people here in Lancaster. We bring specialists from outside to do the laying of the pipeline because, well, we need to make sure that it's done right, and Lancastrians don't know how to do that. We'll put our people up in hotels for the few months that they come through here, and they'll eat at your restaurants. That's about the benefit that it's going to be for us locally. And that's out of a Williams woman's mouth. That's not my projection. Everything will be put back better than before after installation. It's safe. I think I've proven some reason why it's not safe. It will help our economy. I think it's going to not help our economy. I'm not an economist, but if Williams is selling gas abroad at a price, and we're going to have to compete, I think it's only going to raise our prices for us. And it may help Williams and help them make more money, but I really don't think it's going to help us. The common people, the landowners who have the pipeline going through our backyards with the risk in our homes. There are pipelines everywhere. You know what? This wouldn't be a greenfield line if there were pipes everywhere. There aren't pipes where this line is going in, and I'd like to keep it that way. It's only one thing, and we talked about that too. One thing means many more. So what can we do? I'm open to ideas. I have some suggestions, but I'm open to ideas. One thing is, right, the FERC. They have been making adjustments according to what we say. They have, FERC employees have said that the number of comments and the resistance that they have heard from Lancaster County is unprecedented. And I think that means something. So they've never said no to a pipeline. In the past, there's been so much opposition, and there are times that a gas company will withdraw their filing with FERC and abandon. It doesn't happen very often, but they abandon what they're trying to do. I'm hoping that we might be able to prove that we continue to have an unprecedented example here where they say no this time because of our valid reasons why it should not go in. There are, making comments to FERC can be complicated. You can just send it in. There are green cards in the back of the room, back on the tables. It tells you step by step how to do it online. And also on those green cards we have the snail mail address if you want to write it by hand and write it and send it in the mail. Just so if you haven't done it, you go in and you fill out this information and then they send you an email. You have to have an email address. Then you have to go to your email address and open up something and then go from there. So they don't make it really easy, and if you need help, call somebody. Brenda's going to give you some information afterwards. We'll come help you. Like, we care that much. We'll do what we can to talk you through it. What else can you do? Write letters to the editor. This is something that I think we need to let our county know that I'm so amazed. In the past week, I've had 4 people call me and say, I just heard about the pipeline. And I always say, where have you been living? How have you only just begun to hear about this? And I had someone who just said to me this morning, who called me actually from up this way, and I forgot about this. He couldn't come to the meeting tonight, and I guess he saw something in the paper and looked up my number and called me and said, give him hell. And I was like, who are you? And that's what he said when I answered the phone. I'm so-and-so, and I could hardly hear him. He's an older gentleman who used to work where they frack. And he used to supply them with equipment for the drilling in fracking. And he said that one of his biggest concerns, having seen the production and how it works, is what happens where the pipes have joints, that's where they're dangerous. And with this high pressure, that's where he thinks there is danger. And that I should share that with you. So I shared that with him. Contact your elected officials. In Mardik and Conestoga Township, we're moving forward in some community ordinances. We're working with a group called, do I have this up there? Yeah, CELDEF, Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund. And it's a group of lawyers who help us as a municipal community to make ordinances that would make it illegal for a pipeline to come through our community, our township. The pipeline insurance, this is how, I'm just learning this. We're in the process of making this happen right now. We need to have our supervisors on board, and we're working on that. Some of them are with us, some of them aren't, some of them are still being educated and feel like they don't know enough to make a decision. But the lawyers help us make ordinances. And what Williams Insurance Company says, you can't break a municipal township's laws. You need to take them to court to override the laws. So if we have laws that say, pipeline, you can't come in, they would have to sue us, and this is what scares supervisors because nobody wants to be sued. They would have to sue us to get permission, or from the courts, to break our laws. And our hope is that if we can get a few townships along the way where Williams has to sue and gets tied up in courts, and this prolongs them. They want to get this gas to export by 2017. Beginning of 2017, and if they're tied up in courts for years, they're not going to be happy. And we're trying to keep them out of Lancaster County using right-of-ways they already have. So that's one way. There'll be more information coming about that. It's scary, but I feel like I want to try what we can, and that's one of the ways. There's information you can get online. We have LancasterAgainstPipelines.com. We have LancasterPipelines.org. And that person, whoever runs that, is anonymous, or maybe he's come out, or she, but so far the person doing that's been anonymous, but they have the LancasterPipelines.org has a great interactive map where you can see exactly where the line crosses the road and whose property it goes through, and other great information. There's an email, info@LancasterPipelines.com. There are a couple of Facebook pages in the southern end. There's one for Conestoga. I've been running Save Our Unspoiled Land, and then we have Lancaster Against Pipelines, which kind of is for all of Lancaster County. There are some specific steps that are coming up for you in your community, and I think, Brenda, I'm going to turn it over to you now. It's the end of my presentation. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Melinda. Before we move on to the question and answer session, I want to inform you of action that you can take as landowners and as concerned community members right here in West Hempfield. I've requested that the pipeline be on the agenda for the West Hempfield Supervisors meeting. That's September 2nd at 7:30. That'll be at the Township Building, just down the street on Marietta Avenue. Plan to attend this and also bring your concerns to the supervisors. They, like yourselves, have concerns of their own. I've been working closely with Ron. He's very receptive and understanding to listening to us residents, and they want to address their concerns directly with Williams Partners, and they're working to do so right now. August 18th, please make note of it. That's the last day to submit comments to FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, for their scoping focus. So the scoping focus means any major issues concerning like environmental, historical hazards, that should be brought to their attention by August 18th. It's my understanding you'll still be able to comment after that time, but you won't be able to narrow the focus that FERC will be looking at. So if there's really specific concerns that you have, I know we have a local farmer here who has springs on his farm that would be a direct concern. We have the recently restored covered bridge. That's actually on the National Historic Register. That's a concern. There's lots of things throughout West Hempfield that you might want to make note to FERC that they realize, especially on your land. If you know of any historical sites, Indian sites, if you found arrowheads, those types of things, any species of animals that might be protected, all of those things matter to FERC. You need to get those in by August 18th. On Wednesday, we'll actually be doing a call-in to Williams Partners, and this is to oppose their recent trespass on Mardick Township properties. We really don't want that to happen here in West Hempfield. We're not aware that it has been, but it's been happening down in Mardick. There will be a script outside on the front table that you can use to call in and let them know that you oppose people trespassing on Mardick Township's land, as well as your own, to try and prevent that.
Actually, I will have them in my hot little fist if someone wants to see
Okay,
it.
Tim, you can see Tim who just waved. He'll have those to hand out as well. The cards here at the corner, if you can start passing those down your row, there's some golf pencils as well. Fill those out with your contact information. And if you wish to be more actively involved, please indicate so on this sheet. And then we'll have someone come around in a basket in about 5 minutes to collect those. So if you feel comfortable filling those out, we would appreciate it. It'll update you on upcoming meetings and keep you informed of what's going on. Off topic here, I didn't plan to mention anything, but Melinda brought up a good point about crop yields. I've been contacted by the Bradford County Conservation District. I actually saw a press release they have for farmers who have pipelines running through their land. They want to do a study on crop yield impact. I was trying to get more information from him, and I asked if I could share this, and he said this, that I could. As they're gathering information from farmers up in Bradford County, he said, first and foremost, do not plant corn, at least not if you expect to get anywhere near a normal crop. So I just wanted to share that with you tonight. If you would like information on that study, I'm more than happy to get you in touch. His name is Kevin Brown. I can get you his phone number. Last but not least, before we move on to question and answer, as a resident of this community, I'm a lifelong Pennsylvanian. I just ask that you consider opposing this pipeline as a whole. Not just Lancaster County, not just a certain reroute that doesn't go through your land, but as a whole. Even as reroutes will continue to be proposed, and like Melinda said, they'll shift all over the place, we want to oppose it because it is no solution to our neighbors to have the pipeline move from our backyard to your backyard. This pipeline is not good for any of us. We don't get income from it. We don't get the benefit from it. I just urge you to take that stance when making your statements to FERC, and that we can join together as a community, because that's going to be the most strength that we have in opposing this pipeline. So I'm going to pass this over to Jono, and he's going to be facilitating the question and answer session. And again, watch for that basket for your sign-in sheets.
I just want to say one thing. The reason we want your information, if you're willing, we'll keep you updated. If you have your email on there, we'll put you into a database. And when there are meetings, we'll make sure that we send you out notices about that. We won't sell your email to anyone or share it with anybody else. It's only for the 3 of us and those who work with us. But it will only be meetings that pertain to Lancaster County and this pipeline. So
and you'll have an option to opt out if you decide you don't want to be on it. So please share your information, at least get a few emails from us. If you change your mind at any time, you can opt out and ask us to stop sending you information. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a couple more announcements. Darcy was kind enough to bring her no pipeline sexy front yard signs. If you would like one, they're by donation. You can see Darcy in the back. You can see she's in the back right now holding it up. Marcy, I'm sorry, Darcy. Marcy. It's been a long day. She's holding something else up, I can't see. The petition also, I think that was already mentioned. Regarding FERC. So there have been several people, including myself, who, once they submitted a comment, it didn't actually go through. Their website is pretty hard to navigate. If anyone's ever filed their taxes online, I'm sure you know how government websites work. So if you are going to file online, make sure they got it. You can do so by, they have like a database that the comments go to. You can see, if you can read your comment if it actually went through. I personally think the best way to comment is through actual mail. So you can do both if you want to. But if you're going to do it online, make sure they actually got it. So how the comment period is going to work is there's already a line up here now. Try to keep the line short. Once someone leaves, actually, after these gentlemen are done with their comments, I'm going to do a hand-raising system, and I'll pick out the first 5 to raise their hands, and then those 5 will come up. We'll do it that way. So we'll do by call. So that's going to. Oh, and also donations are in the back. The church was kind enough to let us use their space. There's a donation jar in the back. Any donations we get in the jar will go to the use of this church.
Respectful.
Respectful.
We should talk about how we comments.
Do you want to talk about that?
Well, we had it on the list, just to remind people.
So basically, we've been asked, since this is a church, that you not use any foul language, that you be respectful to each other, and we just ask that you all act that way.
Oh, I didn't know about that. No cussing. So the people answering questions are going to be Tim. I'm going to invite Tim Spees up here right now. Tim, if you would like to join us. Tim is another resident of Martin Township, and he is very knowledgeable and a firecracker. Melinda, would you like to join us up front here? Brenda, are we going to do the Q&A with us? Or? So, between the 4 of us, we should be able to answer whatever questions you have. So, yeah, you just want to state your name and it's on.
Are you sure? It doesn't sound like he's coming through.
Flip the switch up.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Okay, my name is John Christian Rose Sr. Okay? I live on 4593 Miller Drive. That's where Bridge Valley Miller Drive connect. Bridge Valley, and the pipeline going behind me. Now, as far as the pipeline, I'm a licensed plumber and a certified welder. TMI went down, there was a human error. The same as the difference of somebody driving down the road and somebody driving over in front of you and you have an accident. That's what happened to TMI, because everything was a procedure and an inspection. And just like this job here, I know for a fact, because I was a certified welder and I worked as a safety engineer in Ironwood, Lebanon for quite a while. And everything you do is got to go through a procedure inspection. And as far as their safety habits, every once in a while there is a mistake. Just like someone having an accident in their car, same thing. But other than that, everything is a procedure and inspections. And as far as the community, as you can't imagine how much money they're bringing to the community as far as people buying stuff, living here, staying until they leave, and all kinds of stuff. And it'd be a big factor to the community that you wouldn't realize how much money it really does bring in. And as far as the safety of it, and honestly, I don't have anything to worry about. And in contraction to what she said about well water, how many people have well water anymore? Count them. Okay. But if anything goes wrong with that, and I'll take care of it.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that your experience has been.
You want to get rid of me, right?
Well, no, if you have more to say, let me
I
respond,
understand.
and then you can say more. I just want to say thank you that your experiences when you worked, that the inspections were done. These are gas pipelines where we've been told by the State Department that they, or by Pennsylvania State,
You've been told.
they've done a study and reported that out of 3,000 inspections of the riskiest pipelines that were supposed to be done, 1,000 were done. The problem is they've laid more pipes than they can take care of and inspect each year like they're supposed to. So they may happen when they first put them in, and they check them, yes, and they don't want to have accidents. But accidents do happen, and the ongoing inspections are what are lacking right now in Pennsylvania. So if you have more comments, please continue, but I'm glad to hear that your experience where you were working is that inspections were done regularly. This, I think, is something different.
Well, I think they have to be done regular too. I'm sure they do. Thank you. Praise the Lord. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
I want to speak a little bit on the economic benefit. I work in the tourism industry for my day job, and all throughout Pennsylvania, and I work with a lot of tourist bureaus in northern Pennsylvania who have experienced the extreme Marcellus gas boom, hotels being built and then being filled. But if you visited that area 3 years ago versus visiting it today, you'll see that they had to put all this infrastructure, hotels, people who were renting, their rent went up sometimes 10 times the cost. They could no longer afford to live there because they wanted to exploit the cost of the gas industry. But now those people are gone, and the economic boom is starting to come down, and they're starting to lose the dollars, and that's what we've seen in northern Pennsylvania.
I'd also like to add, in regards to the well water, I just saw a posting today on the Lancaster Against Pipelines Facebook page. I believe the gentleman is here that was responsible for posting that. And WGAL, who's often been criticized for a rather conservative bias, actually reported on this, that there have now been 23 counties in Pennsylvania whose well water have been compromised due to fracking. Now, please don't think, like the one township supervisor said, that, and I quote, well, this has nothing to do with fracking. This pipeline has everything to do with fracking. And if it's not your well water, think about the 23 counties who can't drink their water anymore. And when we allow this pipeline to happen, we just say yes to fracking. So it's 23 counties, sir. And I would like to say, I heard a lot of people grumbling, but we do want to respect the right to people to support the pipeline. And I just ask that they listen and find out what's going on at either end of this pipeline. If you're not worried about the pipeline here, think about what's happening at either end. And you'll change your mind.
Good evening, friends. My name is Charles Lane. I'm not a resident of West Hempfield Township, but I am adamantly against this pipeline. There is the alternative route, which of course would be a much more expensive undertaking for Williams. But as I mentioned the other night at Millersville, all they have to do is to add a few pennies to the cost per million or 1,000 cubic feet of gas that they transmit to the pipeline, and they'll get it all back. So that is a totally irrelevant argument. I'd like to say that I wrote a letter to the editor last week in which I, among other things, pointed out something about FERC. I'm not sure how much you have studied FERC, but that organization, that authority or commission was enacted into being by an act of Congress several decades ago, and its purpose is to bring order out of chaos with respect to the building of infrastructure for the energy industry, and that includes pipelines. Now the issue is FERC has 5 commissioners. These are appointed directly by the President of the United States. Well, you and I know the President doesn't appoint them. They are offered, undoubtedly, by organizations, and then the President simply has somebody okay it. Of the 5, all of them have had direct or indirect involvement in the energy industry.
4. There are 4 right now. We're missing 1.
Well, I looked it up on the internet, and then I read the backgrounds of each one. There were 5. Anyway, maybe they're missing 1 now. They have to reappoint. Every year they reappoint 1 because you rotate off in 5 years. So the laws which govern, how shall I put it? The regulations and the laws which FERC applies when they are evaluating a project like the pipeline have been written and enacted in Congress, or they are the outgrowth of enactments in Congress. They were written by the energy industry. So the energy industry has stacked the cards against communities like this, against civilians, citizens like us. And I closed my letter to the editor, which incidentally they did not print. I think I was a little too forceful for them. They are not open to hearing the truth a lot of the time. I closed by saying, it's maybe cynical of me, but the Koch brothers, for example, will have more power and more control of the land in Lancaster County than the citizens of Lancaster County will have if this pipeline goes through. There is the alternative, and there's no reason why we can't force them to take the alternative, which is to go on the existing right-of-way.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Michael Whitmer, Silver Spring, and I have 2 questions, brief ones. Just the first is there any knowledge in any other areas outside of Lancaster County where there's a grassroots opposition to this? And will there be any, and is there coordination with them, and is there any benefit that might come from?
Good question.
Yes, Anne is standing up right now. She's from Lebanon County. And we are in direct contact with friends of ours from Columbia County who have been organizing up there, which is where the southern leg is starting at, is in Columbia County. So right now it's in Columbia, Lebanon, and Lancaster counties that I know of.
Schuylkill County too.
Oh, great.
We had lots of good comments from people from Schuylkill County at our FERC meeting, and they are having their first organizing meeting September 6th.
Oh, excellent.
So,
4 counties. Schuylkill. If anyone didn't hear Anne, Schuylkill County is added to that list.
And that's,
I'd also like to point out that I was not at the meeting. Actually, I think if Kara is here, maybe she can confirm, but I'm to understand. You notice how careful I am? I understand that at the Conestoga Township meeting last week, that the Conestoga Township supervisors came out of their executive session and announced that we would like to now move forward and with the CELDAP representative and begin to draft ordinances. So Conestoga Township has actually said that they want to move forward with this. We're from Arctic Township. We're keeping those supervisors appraised of what's going on. And so yes, Lebanon, Schuylkill, Columbia, it is happening. And not only here, it is happening all over the country. In communities that are faced by fracking, injection wells, all of these hazardous incursions, Colorado, New Mexico, New York. And pipeline, I'm sorry. And for me, it's all one thing. It's all about this Marcellus shale boom. But it's happening all over the country. So, and we can be a part of that.
so that sort of segue,
Oh, go ahead.
segues a little bit into my next question, and that is, what real legal weight would we have from the grassroots? And I think it's already been addressed a bit. The group of lawyers who could possibly delay it in courts for years and then time run out for the company. Other than that, is there anything else, especially by coordinating efforts outside of just Lancaster County, to actually oppose it by law and trumping FERC if they come down the side of the pipe?
We're also working with the Lower Susquehanna Riverkeeper, who works firsthand with down in DC. He works. He's pretty much the voice of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation almost, or rather, he makes them do their job. He kind of prods them. and also Clean Air Council, which is out of Philadelphia. So these are like, they're not grassroots groups, but the grassroots groups are also working with bigger groups for the legalese wise. The grassroots groups works with the communities, and we're also working with the bigger groups. Yes.
And I think that's,
Can I just add?
Yeah, go for it. Do you want to come up here?
Delaware River keeping that list, and they just had the successful case that they won against FERC.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if everyone heard that, but she said the Delaware River Keeper did win their case against FERC. I also should note that you should definitely come out to the township meeting on September 2nd. I know Ron will probably be upset that I'm not doing this, but please come out and address your concerns with him and the supervisors. Because if this is where the community wants to go, as far as sell this, now this is our first meeting, but if that's the direction you as a community want to go, we should discuss it and bring it to them.
Everyone just had their hand up. Why don't you line up?
Hi, my name's Diane Wertz. I live on 1000 Prospect Road. The proposed line will be going less than a half a mile from our house across the field, which is too close for anyone. I have photos of what it looks like up in Clinton and Lycoming County from the fracking. The lands, in-state game lands and parks. This has gone up. I mean, the land will never be the same again. They have clear-cut everything. They're disrespectful, working all hours of the night. The vibrations and everything from the fracking, the traffic, the people that work for them are disrespectful. They may bring in business in the short term, but you're left with what they leave behind. And you'll have all kinds of business, in the beginning, and then you'll be cleaning up your roads, trying to repair your roads and everything else, and it's terrible. If anybody wants to see the photos of the buildings and stuff they have put up on top of a dirt mountain, I have them right here.
I've learned lately to keep my comments to where they're appropriate for the group I'm talking to, but since you brought it up, I'm going to talk about what's at the other end of the pipelines. If the room wants to hear about the pipeline, that's it. I keep it at that. By their own admission, there's 6,000 wells, and this is a number that's hard to nail down, but there's apparently about 6,000 wells right now, and I think that's Pennsylvania, not Marcellus in general, but I think Pennsylvania, could be wrong, doesn't really matter, because in the next 20 to 30 years, their stated goal is, and this was on the Diane Rehm show that Melinda appeared on, and the gas company representative didn't deny it, so I'm going to assume it's true, their stated goal is 100,000 wells. Now, if anyone in this room thinks one pipeline through Lancaster County can bring that much gas from Marcellus Shale, you're fooled. So imagine this as multiple pipelines. Melinda talked about the open access. Anywhere along that pipeline, they can put any compressor station, an electrical generating station, anything they need to above ground, and all they need is the permission from FERC, and they've never been denied. So please don't look at this like it's a pipeline. They want to make Pennsylvania, this part of Pennsylvania, the hub of industrial activity for Marcellus Shale. That's what they've said. It's what they want. So, yes, and there are some people who will benefit. Some people will get some jobs. There's some economic benefit for the state for this. Absolutely. At what cost? At what cost? Because methane is 25 to 30 times more powerful than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. If you follow what's going on in Siberia lately with the sinkholes and the methane releases in the ocean, that they're starting to realize that global warming is releasing more methane, do you think we need to be doing something that's going to add on to that? I think not. So enough of the doom and gloom.
Thank you, Tim. I just want to add that we had the building until 8:30. They've been kind enough to let us stay longer. Let's I want to hear everyone's comments. We'll move along. They say we can stay late, but let's just keep in mind trying to keep our comments concise.
And we'll try and keep our responses concise if need be. Thank you. Please go ahead.
I'm James Worth, and I'm
You're
her
okay?
worst half.
Oh, look, I'm fine.
Okay, the guy walking up afterwards said we're okay.
I'm James Worth, and I'm not her worst half, not her better half. We live on Prospect and Court. What I want to say to Amy, what you didn't have the figures for in your speech, is 1.7 million decatherms a day. 7 million homes it would heat, and it's 2.5 billion cubic foot per day of gas. Well, the Williamson guy told me we're only 0.486 mile away. Well, it could be 486 miles, and it's too damn close. Excuse me. We got. But when my wife was talking about, her oldest brother was right in the beginning of the fracking. They cut trees without his permission. Oh, it was a communications screw up. He was up on top. No water, no gas, no electric, no nothing. No cell phone service. That's what he chose to do. Now you can drive an 18-wheeler back to the base of his driveway, turn around and come back out on Route 44 in Lycoming County. That's how bad they did. They won't let the locals use the wood. They grind it up and sell it as mulch and tractor trailer. They don't keep the right of way the way it's supposed to. There's no way. There's no way. But I'll be here all night, you'll have to drag me out. Dan Forey is my neighbor. He has, which everybody probably in this room probably knows, he has springs, he doesn't have wells. I have a map from back Atlas, way back in the early 1800s, because our house was built in 1860. Now, he has no idea where the wells or where the springs come from. There's been 20 quarries and ore mines on the top of Prospect Hill over the years. So how's that water being fed? Now they're going to dig and maybe have to blast. Well, this water won't be worth nothing, So you don't know where the poison's going to filter to. So what's he going to do? He's 300.
I'd just like to say that my children and I and my husband will be chained to trees if it gets to that. And I'd love to have some people there out there with us. Although some of you need to not get arrested so you can bail us out.
Well, I'll close now because there's a lot of people. If we have another meeting, I could talk for 2 hours.
We'll have other meetings.
Hi, I'm Michelle Hippie, and I have a million things to say and comment on, and I can't stand this whole business either. I guess I just have one question to ask. We're talking about insurance. Insurance that I think of is sinkhole insurance. It's been very popular with water lines and things breaking in other counties, not due to the fracking and the pipeline, but does anyone here have sinkhole insurance?
Someone in the back does.
But not due to the pipeline, right? Yeah, because what I'm thinking is, I know where I live, it's nothing but rocks. You can't even put a stake or tomato in a rock. So, there's probably glass, I'm sure, to get that. So they're just, they're gonna move upset the rock ledges and things like that. And eventually these things are gonna shift. And then, once a sinkhole starts, it's going to be like you're insured. If you think, oh, maybe I should get sinkhole insurance, because over there somewhere there's a sinkhole, and it's going to be expensive. And then if it gets too close to your house, and it's going to be, oh, you can't get sinkhole insurance, it's too close now, and all that. I'm wondering, has anybody ever thought about that or anything, or do you have any comments on that? Have you heard of that in any other areas, or?
I haven't heard anyone bring that up before, but I think that's a good point, another consideration.
Hi, good evening. I just have a really quick comment. My family lives in the Bridge Valley Development.
Who are you?
Sarah Holton. We live in Bridge Valley Development on Heather Lane, and I also have a million concerns, also going with our floodplain and our watershed and our bridge and so on and so forth. But I do want to comment that I had a meeting with State Representative Dave Hickernell on Friday. He sat down with me, and I feel like the conversation was positive. I feel like really at the end of it, we got to the meat and potatoes. When I explained that we feel like it's David and Goliath, and when, for the most part, we're middle class America, my family has no money to pay for an attorney or a specialist, and I was bringing up the amount of homes and so on and so forth, and Dave became very open and said that this was coming on his property. He would also be taking the steps that we're taking. He said that obviously Burke is at a federal level, he's at a state level, but he does have open communication with Williams. They hand-delivered maps to his office. And like I said, this was coming across his property. He said that he would be doing the same thing we are. But he said that he's only heard of and I don't know the truth in any of it, but only 6 to 10 people have contacted me that they're concerned. So I said, you know, obviously we want to stay respectful and educated, but I'm going to be forwarding him my comments because we'll be doing the same that we submitted to FERC. Because as we were looking at the maps, I was surprised at how much Representative Hickenell did not know about what was going on in our communities. He did specifically say he'd be calling the township supervisors in West Hempfield. I'll be following up with him. But if you just think about it, when you write to FERC, copy, paste that, send that in an email to him, because he is talking to the higher-ups of Williams, and if he has those concerns in hand, it might provide that opportunity for that discussion that we don't seem to be able to have.
Sarah, thank you. But one thing, I get really frustrated with people who say, yeah, if that were my backyard, I'd be doing what you're doing. Like, that's lame to me, and that's really ignorant and uncompassionate.
And I said that to him, and I said,
we're a community.
The biggest thing right now is acting with foresight rather than, you know, crying later with hindsight, and that he has the ability to do that, and he works for us. You know, I said to come to Heather Lane any afternoon, and the residents will be out speaking about it, and I've invited him to our home.
Well, I'll also say Tom Houghton's here, and he's running, can I say something? That he's been outspoken against the pipeline from the beginning, and I think we need to make a change in our elected officials.
Yeah, I also...
I'm not running against Hickenell, I'm running against Joe Pitts for U.S. Congress.
Right, sorry.
I mentioned to him as well that many people have been in our neighborhood, and you know, change needs to happen with the pipeline, and hopefully they'll be advocates of that.
Thank you.
Officials say they can't do anything, but a lot of our elected officials in office right now in Pennsylvania have gas industry in their back pocket, and they're certainly not doing anything to help us. So I think they can do a lot more than they're saying, even just to speak out and say they're against it and they care. I mean, isn't that why we elected them, to try and help us have better lives? Someone has their hand up, sir.
I hate to interrupt right now, but...
no, you don't. You really want to. Go ahead.
This is a better time than any. My name is Ryan Hazel. I'm running for the 98th District Legislature against Hickenell for the Green Party. I'm just being official this week. Last time I heard from my other opponent, Tony Crocomo, tried to speak with Dave.
That's Tony. I invite them all.
He knows as well as I do that Dave
We're really
has
close.
no position on this, and like I'm sorry, what was your name?
She has to take
Sarah. He knows nothing about it, and
I don't want to cut you off. I just would like to say we are not affiliated with any political party. I did invite everyone, including people who are running. I also invited Congressman Pitts, Hickenell, Brubaker. I've invited the governor, and I've tried the president, but you never know. So the governor actually replied and told me he couldn't make it, which was kind of astounding that he took the time. But I want to say, and I'm glad before he's pointed this out, this is not a political or religious matter. This is strictly about you protecting your land. And I know there are Republicans here, there are Democrats, there are Green Party, there are Independents. And I think the point is that we all work together for the same goals, regardless of any of those oversights.
And Brenda, my part
Email and call everyone, all of your legislators.
But they should be working for the voice of the people.
Yeah, if you have a FERC comment, save it in a Word document like Melinda said, and share it with all of those people. The more people that know about these FERC comments that we've elected, the better. Sorry, we'll continue on the questioning that Tony Crocomo is running.
My name is Tony Crocomo. I'm a former West Hempfield Township Supervisor, and I am the Democratic candidate for the State House of Representatives running for Mr. Hickenell's seat. This pipeline does not go through my property, but I'm here today anyway. I oppose this pipeline. I've always opposed the pipeline. I oppose it because it's supposed to be based on demonstrated public need, and there has been no demonstrated public need. There's been demonstrated corporate need, not public need. So this pipeline should not go through. They can get this gas to market by using the existing alignment as was demonstrated during the presentation. They have connectivity. They don't need this greenfield pipeline. My other point is that when you consider the West Hempfield Township Volunteer Fire Department, like great organization, they don't have the equipment, the manpower, or the training to address a pipeline emergency. Nor does any other volunteer fire department along the pipeline route, nor do many of the professional fire departments along the pipeline route. This is a situation we're taking on all the risk, and I do disagree with you on one thing. This is a political, and this is a religious, and this is a citizenship issue. And I think we should all, Mr. Hickenell's not here. Mr. Hickenell doesn't know about this. He's educating himself. Fine. He represents us. And I believe the two alternatives you have in this room would do a much better job representing us than the current occupant of that office.
I'm Greg Serback. I live in Landisville. Until last year, I lived in West Hempfield. And I just wanted to say, I have two real quick comments before I say that. I just want to say, I actually came to this around the idea of the preserves. I was really concerned about the idea of going through the preserves. And I mean, duh, it's called a preserve for a reason, right? And I was like, well, let's just move it. And that's how I started. But the more I've learned about this, I've definitely come on board with just saying this pipeline is not necessary. And I'm really impressed by everything that everyone's learned and the research that everyone's done. Two things I just want to say. One is, one of the ways that I think we can get our officials to go on record or against or for our cause is something's actually happening tomorrow night. The Lancaster City Council is considering a resolution that they're going to vote on to send to FERC their comments opposing the pipeline. So they're going to vote on that tomorrow. It doesn't hold any kind of legal weight, but it's a way that they can say, here's the elected officials in Lancaster City, and they oppose this, and they're sending it along. I'm planning to attend that meeting and see if I can get the writing of that resolution and see if that's the kind of thing that we can pass along to some of our supervisors and county commissioners and others, and see if we can get them to go on record, either supporting a resolution like that or not, and then we'll really know where do our elected officials stand. The other thing, and I just haven't heard this one brought up too much, and I had a conversation with someone about this, and I know none of you are necessarily like experts on this, and maybe someone else in the room knows about it, but it's one of the things that I have a concern about that I haven't heard too much about. And it's definitely a local concern in our communities. Local communities are responsible for stormwater management. They have to have a stormwater management plan, and if they don't have an effective one, they get fined. And so like down in Manor Township, they're getting fined because they don't have a very good stormwater management program. And they've been working for years to fix that stormwater management program. And my understanding is when pipeline companies come and do construction, they are exempt from having to worry about stormwater management during their construction, based on a law that was passed during George W. Bush's time period. And so they can come in and do whatever they want with their construction, and it has no bearing on the stormwater management plan that, for instance, Manor Township came up with. So that's another concern that I haven't really heard a lot about yet, and I think that one, our local elected officials really need to know about that one, because that's going to cost us locally in the long run.
Yeah, Greg, I appreciate you bringing that up, because you actually educated me on something I've been asking about, and like Linda said, I got a full-time job. My concern is, Williams keeps saying do a hydrostatic test on the pipeline. I did the math, and 1 mile of 42-inch pipeline contains 1.1 million gallons. So what are they doing with that when the test is done? They dumping it out of the ground? Because we can't do that. You just answered my question. Apparently they're allowed to, unless someone, say, passes an ordinance that prohibits them from doing that. It's a lot of water. A lot of water for 1 mile of pipeline.
The watershed program here, any of you who live around here know that the Bridge Valley area floods. Like every time it storms. And where they're taking the pipeline through is right between the historic covered bridge on Bridge Valley Road and the sewage pumping station. And if you look there, it's a floodplain area. It has natural grasses, has large trees that I imagine have been there for decades, if not hundreds of years. And so those trees will have to be removed permanently, which will take out the shade that it provides that keeps the streams cool. You need to keep the streams cool for fish and wildlife to survive in them. And that all goes down to the Chesapeake Bay program that's established, and as Greg was saying, with all the legislation that's already set for the water runoff, the Little Chickies runs into Susquehanna, which runs into the bay. So that is it's a constant flow that happens. So during construction especially, that is a huge concern for those of us who live in that area because it is already flood prone. On the other end of Little Chickies, we lost a bridge that had to be completely rebuilt because of flooding. So this is something that's of great concern and something that should be addressed with FERC.
I'm Jay Parrish. I was a state geologist for 9 years. And let me just say, first off, you can contact everybody you want to, but the first person you have to contact is FERC. If you don't write to FERC, nothing else really matters, because FERC are the people who actually decide all this. Do you still have that earthquake act that you can bring up? And when somebody mentioned sinkholes, and I was the only person to raise my hand with sinkhole insurance because I'm the only person in Pennsylvania who has it, because I'm a state geologist. But
Have you seen this? I mean, is that the one?
yeah, it's one. But if you look at Lancaster, there's a formation called the Epler Formation, which is the most prolific formation for sinkholes. I mean, much more than anywhere else. It goes right through here, and that's where the pipeline's going to be going over. So it's going to be it's a pretty active area for sinkholes. I brought off the earthquakes because if you look at where the earthquakes occur, Lancaster is kind of a hot spot, which is why I live here, by the way. And if you consider that, you can put a pipeline almost anywhere in Pennsylvania and not be near an earthquake. But one of the fewer epicenters that we've had in recent years was here in Salunga, at Spooky Nook, and that's where the pipeline's going. So if you think, well, gee, if you had the choice, wouldn't you want to move it just somewhere else than there? So to me, that says that they weren't thinking a whole lot in terms of environmental geology as they looked at it. And then the last thing is, you also may have seen in the paper that PP&L is coming through with a power line. And where do you think the corridor would be for a power line? Except, right next to it, you can't put anything over it. But the work's already been done if you do that. So this is not a one-time thing. And anytime anybody wants to bring anything through, they're going to use the same corridor.
Thank you, Jack.
Good. Thanks.
My name is Ryan Hazel, I said that before, and first of all, I was surprised when I got here. I was a little late, and I was amazed at how many cars were here. I think it's great that so many people came out and you can all get this I'm going to move this up a little bit. It's a little hard to bend over like that. Anyway, one thing I want to say is that when are we going to start looking at long-term solutions instead of short-term solutions? To me, the natural gas in general is a short-term solution, and if it is a solution at all, we know the risks, and there really aren't any rewards for us here, per se. We need to start looking into other alternatives for energy, such as solar, which is completely clean. It's not going to blow up or kill anybody or dirty their water, and it's sustainable, because if there is no sun, then there is no us. So I think that's where we need to be looking to, and as a culture in Pennsylvania and in the country, I think we need to start looking more long-term and bigger picture than just short-term band-aids to fix small solutions and then create bigger problems. It's kind of led us to where we are now. So that being said, I think that's something we need to think about, and with David Hickernell, bringing him back up, it's fine that he is learning and educating, but to say that he, if it was in his backyard, that when she said that, it kind of stuck to me. I didn't want to bring anything up political, but to say that if it was in my backyard, I wouldn't want it there, or I'd be doing what you are doing. To me, he represents all of us, so it is his backyard. And he needs to stand up and hear our voice and answer our calls. So hopefully he will do that for the time being while he's there. And hopefully me or Tony will be there later. So, but thank you, and thanks for coming out.
Good evening. My name is George Fry, and I'm from Millersville. My wife and I went to the first meeting that they had at the university. She said we ought to go. I was not really too informed about it or too enthused about it, to say the least. I told her it was going to be a dog and pony show, and when we went, it was a dog and pony show by Williams. reason I came up is just to make a few brief comments, although you sort of broke my balloon because you said it's not political, and I think it is to a certain extent. I can't help but think of the representatives in Lancaster County, and I think in some ways they are being sponsored by the very people that we're trying to oppose. Financially, they're helping them stay in office. So I think it is political.
Yeah.
Secondly, I do think there's a little bit of religious connotations to it.
There is for me. I'm with you on that.
At the meeting at Millersville, I couldn't help but the passage of beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, and inwardly are ravenous wolves. So that was pretty much my thoughts on it, other than the fact that I grew up in Lancaster County. I think everyone in Lancaster County, regardless if you're in line with the pipe or not, if you grew up and loved this country, this county the way that we have, that we've been blessed with, you all have a stake in this. We all have a stake in this. And I think we should all support those that are directly involved. And in many ways, we're all directly involved. Thank you.
I just want to check, Jeff. Okay, he's okay. We'll take these last three and then we'll wrap it up for the evening.
My name is Bruce Clark. I'm actually from Earl Township up near New Holland. I spent a lifetime in the nuclear power business. In deference to the gentleman from TMI, we were very concerned about welds. We were very concerned about inspection. We were very concerned about operating things properly, and we still make mistakes. Okay? When you're dealing with something like a pipeline like this with that much contained energy, I go back to things my father taught me about metallurgy. If they make welds and they make them with bends and things like this, and they don't properly heat treat them, eventually they're going to crack. Right. And then what do you have? So think very carefully about this. Now the political side. Political is people. What is the real need for this pipeline? What is the real benefit for this pipeline? What is it going to cost us? Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat Landis. I live in, our address is Mountjoy, but I'm West Hempfield. Does it still figure down?
You can just lower the gooseneck.
I don't have a question, but with your permission, I would like to read a statement that was put on Facebook by my sister-in-law, Nancy Landis. They are putting the pipeline right directly through her farm.
They're proposing to put a
They're
pipeline.
proposing. She summed it up so well, and if, with your permission.
If it's okay with her.
And just, yes, it's okay with me. Just an aside, they just put in a huge solar system for their own farm.
Good.
But they're putting the pipeline through for her.
Right down in Marietta?
Right. She's in Elizabethtown.
Okay.
But it's just so well written.
We'll be the judge of that.
They want to run a 42-inch gas pipeline through my farm, but it's okay with me. The pipeline will discreetly enter through the mid-rear of our 15-acre farm, proceed within 50 feet of our septic system, take out our driveway, completely wipe out a pasture. Then it's off into the sunset through fertile farm fields and flowers. Sure, it may have some inconveniences associated with it. This pipeline will keep us from ever being able to replace or expand our septic system, driving our property value to a minimum. The trees in question are currently a haven for deer and other wildlife, but as a pipeline fellow helpfully pointed out, true story, what's a deer but roadkill waiting to happen? Come on,
really?
We'll be much safer without
Just
the
want to
deer.
make a point.
Yeah. We'll be much safer without the deer. Then there's that pesky urban lore about these pipelines blowing up and stuff. It's just that those people looking for a farm to buy, for some reason, don't know that this is just, some crazy, wacky story. Okay, Well, they do blow up, but only once in a really long while. I mean, you know, just like hardly ever. Despite all this, I'm eager to say, bring it on. The pipeline, you see, is really a great idea. It's a small step that Pennsylvania can take toward America's energy independence. The pipeline will help us become like Saudi Arabia any day now. Everybody knows this. All these ingenious private corporation gas company people want to do for us is to take natural gas from the fracking fields of the Pennsylvania Marcellus region and get it ASAP to an overseas shipping port in Maryland. So nifty enough, this PA gas will join the global market. That will bring the gas folks the best price for their gas. You know, right now, domestic prices for natural gas are pretty darn cheap. And if they just shared Pennsylvania's gas within the US, we'd all get too much of a bargain. These guys are pretty handy at finding the best deal around. Once our US gas can easily make it to the global market, we'll all get to pay the gas companies that triple the price global premium. This is a fantastic opportunity to give our PA resources away to the whole world. Even though we won't get any of the profit, our Pennsylvania gas will be worth a lot. Those entrepreneurial gas guys can have everyone's money. I wish they had thought of that. They're in a huge hurry to get this pipeline approved, and I know why. Everyone knows about global warming, although we just know it's okay, because global warming is probably just all made up. If you watch, you'll see that the people that seem to know the most about global warming are just tree-hugging goofballs. Everybody knows this. Those silly global warming alarmists point to things like melting Arctic sea ice to prove their point. They say that this year or next, during the summer months, the Arctic polar cap will completely melt. Actually, even scientists have proven that, but what is science really but just some tree-hugging exercise? Completely melted. Imagine that. No northern polar ice cap. At least it won't be in the way of Arctic drilling anymore. But this is a silly thing to worry over because everyone knows the Arctic sea ice probably has melted before, only about 300 million years ago, or so it did the same thing. And the dinosaurs did fine with it. It's okay, who needs ice? It's ice, ice melts. But anyway, it's really important that we get this natural gas out of PA as fast as we can. Once the climate changes and the planet warms up enough, there won't be a market for it anymore. Anyway, this too is just a pipeline. It's not GAS, that's later on. This is just a company that wants to put in a harmless metal pipe. This pipe won't encourage further, faster, and more intensive fracking just by being in place. It won't support the most methane-producing energy system mankind has dreamed up. This pipeline has nothing to do with all that global warming hoo-ha. Sheesh, some people look for trouble in everything. There are other reasons to get this thing rolling. I won't go on. She goes on with much more points. I'll try and post it on your Facebook, but just well put out. Just imagine the Williams Company answering, "What are deer but roadkill?"
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Tom Houghton, and I'm a former state representative, and as I mentioned, I'm running for U.S. Congress against Joe Pitts. In Harrisburg a few years ago, I was also a member of the Energy and Environment Natural Resources Committee and the Agricultural Committee. And so I also had a lot of experience fighting for the gas tax, fighting to make them the drillers disclose the type of chemicals they use in the fracking liquid, so I have some experience in this area. I also have experience as a township supervisor in my township 12 years ago when my opponent, Representative Pitts at the time, and the Federal Highway Administration wanted to build 2 6- to 8-lane elevated bypasses completely inside of our township. And that was a huge battle. As a result of that fight, I was the first Democrat on the ballot in my town in 41 years, 1960. And in a 3-to-1 Republican town, we won in a landslide. And that gave us a mandate to go, for me to be the representative of the Route 41 Bypass Commission and go to these meetings for a year and a half and fight Pitts' office toe-to-toe with like 30 other representatives and eventually defeat the bypass. There is something really important to note, though. They had about 4 alternatives. They wanted to run one road through this subdivision, one through that subdivision, one through the farmland, and they did that intentionally and strategically to pit neighbor against neighbor. They want to pit neighbor against neighbor. And so what that does is weaken the community. And that was mentioned that we cannot allow that to happen. So you can't just feel relieved with the pipelines moved away from your house. I believe if you are afraid of the pipeline from coming through your land, you have to be clear and stand against the pipeline, not just feel relieved once it's moved from your community. And I'll end by saying that I was at the Millersville meeting last week when the PIMSA agency, the gentleman who was there, who's supposed to be the watchdog of the industry, opened up by spending about 2 minutes talking about the virtues of pipelines and how great they are for communities. And he's supposed to be the watchdog. That's outrageous to me, and that needs to be changed. Thank you.
One simple comment. It was said earlier, if this right-of-way is created, it's just the beginning.
That's right. Where does it end?
All right, we do have to wrap this up.
Nice guy.
I just want to make a plug for the township meeting. Okay, I talked, now, I don't know if we have any township supervisors here or not tonight, but I did talk to some township supervisors. They were not against this. So talk to your neighbors, fill that meeting house up, or I forget what the date is. They are not against what? They are not against the pipeline. They do not like the path of the pipeline, but they are not against the pipeline. They said would not devalue property value. I hear a lot of townships are, fighting it. I want to make sure West Hempfield does too, because, like I say, some of the supervisors are not against it.
Our township has not made a statement yet officially, and they are currently working on a reroute with Williams.
Just like we said, I talked privately, so it's not.
No, I understand. If you have those concerns, please address those with Ron and at the meeting mostly at the meeting on September 2nd. Thank you all for coming. Again, I want to say thank you to everyone, including the people who are running and the legislators.
I just want to say one thing.